What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Grunt Speak Live, episode 139, filmed on location in globalist America, where the inflation keeps going up and the facts don't matter. That's right, the facts are just like leftoid calls to violence. Apparently, they don't matter at all. I'm Toxic Male. That's Terrence Popp.
What's up, you bunch of titty twisters?
Titty twisters?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Sounds painful already.
That's actually pretty tame compared to what I've called them in the past.
True. It can always be worse. And we have a special guest with us tonight, back by popular demand, Lord Zed. How you doing, good sir?
Yep. And
I'm fine, thanks.
And he's calling us from the country of Georgia.
Not the state of Georgia.
Yes.
The country of Georgia.
Excellent.
And for those of you who don't remember Lord Zed, perhaps you can regale us with your Spetsnaz, with your Spetsnaz impression.
Terrence, you've been hitting Del Taco hard again. Your arteries are gonna clog, and you're gonna die, Terrence. That's not the way to live a life.
You must lay off the pizza.
That's exactly what he used to sound like, too, man. It's hilarious.
Yes. Yeah, we've been looking forward to having him back on. We had him, it was what, like about 6 months ago now, I think.
I think so, yeah.
We had him on.
Yep. And then, we had him on, and then we had the whole Russia and Ukraine fiasco go down.
Yep. And then we got an email. Lord Zed is like, hey, we got to talk some Ukraine business. All right,
No problem.
Not? But first and foremost,
Ooh, that's a good one.
we got to address this particular issue because, like I said, leftoid calls to violence are just becoming so common. Lori Lightfoot. To my friends in the LGBTQ WTF-LOL community, the Supreme Court is coming for us next. This moment has to be a call to arms. Yeah, good luck with that, with Chicago's gun control laws, courtesy of Lori Lightfoot.
All right, I got something to say here. All right. The confused holes in polls community, if you wrap them all together, they make up roughly 6 to 7% of the population of this country. So you go ahead and you call to arms, and then at the end, you just let me know how that worked out for you, stupid fuckers.
Not too well. And I have to ask, if Trump telling people to march peacefully and go home with peace in their hearts, leading to, let's say, a disorganized tourist romp through the Capitol building was considered an insurrection, what's this?
Yep, that's exactly what's going on. Now, if
These are some fighting words from people who crumble at the first sign of resistance.
that's absolutely correct.
Amen to that.
They talk a big game. Well, all right, in my experience, I've had to deal with individuals like this, and they're all talk, and they're all tough until you punch them in the fucking mouth. It is, and then it's like, why did you do that? Please, like, shut the fuck up.
I'm just going to say this now. You know who tends to fight like that? Women.
Chicks, yep.
Yeah. You know, they walk up, they start smacking a dude in the head over and over again. And we've seen these videos.
Yep.
The dude restrains himself and restrains himself.
Until he doesn't.
And then all of a sudden, bam! And then four simps, they fly out like it's raining men and they all tackle the dude because that's how many it takes when your daily intake of soy is about the size of an infant child.
Yeah, and we definitely have to do something about this white knight syndrome that these men have, because let me tell you something. Women in the Western world have never been more protected, more coddled, or taken care of than anywhere in all of human history.
Yep.
This isn't the 1500s where you can like throw women down the stairs and beat them with a rod no bigger than your thumb or something like that. Okay.
You think they're mad about Roe v. Wade? Just wait till you try to reintroduce the rule of thumb.
Oh, yeah. They'll freak the fuck out.
Or just the classic Sean Connery backhand.
Wabaga!
I like that.
I prefer the Captain Kirk, the kiss and punch. Just, move, bitch! Get out the way.
I like it. I like it.
Speaking of bitches that should get out of the way, it's a good segue into tonight's topic because Lord Zed, being in Georgia, is getting a whole different angle on this propaganda business to do with Ukraine. I know a lot of people out there have been successfully distracted by the Roe v. Wade SCOTUS leak. That's because they don't want your attention at where shit's really going down. Naturally, of course.
Yeah, it's always, listen, in the news cycles, it's always smoke and mirrors and word salad prestidigitation.
Amen.
How the hell did I say that? That's not grunt talk.
You can't read it, but you can say it. It's impressive enough.
Yeah, prestidigitation.
And, of course, when you are supposed to be the ones that are on the right side of history, right? You're supposed to be the peacemakers, and, Russia needs to just stand down and, whatever, and, stop the war. How do you help that process? By prolonging the conflict, apparently. Biden signs Ukraine Lend-Lease Act into law, expediting military aid, basically worsening a situation that got where it was because of U.S. intervention.
Yeah, and listen, we did the Lend-Lease stuff in World War II, and I'm going to be honest, and we did some of it in World War I too. It just was called something different.
Yeah,
and that is not going to go anywhere good, especially if Russia starts experiencing severe bad outcomes, which, quite frankly, Ukraine is starting to do effective counterattacks.
Yeah.
It's going to get ugly, especially they have United States artillery pieces now that shoot, I think, 5 to 6 miles more, have 5 to 6 miles worth of range over the Russian pieces.
Oof.
So quite literally, they could be out of range of the Russian pieces and just mop the floor with these people.
Yeah, aren't they finding downed Russian aircraft literally with GPS tags taped to the hull?
Yeah. Oh, I can explain it to you very easily. So, corruption in the West is not the same thing as corruption in Russia. So, in the West, corruption is when people use a system of governance to enrich themselves, skimming off the top. In Russia, corruption is when people use a system of personal enrichment to govern. So every single aspect of life in Russia is not just saturated, it's founded on corruption. There is absolutely no action that you can perform without someone getting a cut. And in 100% of cases, this someone is from Putin's inner or outer circle. So Putin's government is not a dictatorship or a tyranny. It's a mob rule, and he is the Don. So if corruption permits everything in Russia, it's very naive to assume that it would somehow spare the military.
No, yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, there was an incident with an armor company commander recently. He was a major, I think. So his company had 10 active tanks and 10 more mothballed. So when the active tanks got destroyed, he was ordered to bring the remaining tanks out of conservation. And guess how many tanks were in running order?
2.
0.
0.
Oh!
The dude went and shot himself.
I heard about that in the news.
Wow.
Yeah, and everything from these tanks was ripped out and sold off, starting with targeting equipment and ending with treads. They were just empty hunks of metal.
They're cannibalized.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is par for the course for all of Russian military. It's a mentality of no one's going to come and check.
Until they do.
Yeah.
Wow. So what you're saying here is this company commander had 50% of his force in mothballs for the rainy day. And then he went into this rainy day fund, had them stripped and sold the parts for his own personal profiteering.
Or maybe his underlings did.
Yes, and then when they call him to task, and he realizes that it's now coming home to roost, he decides to expose his thinking meat to the air.
Well,
as far as I know, that's the only honorable way for an officer to go.
Oof. Yeah, I can't say you're wrong there. But you're right, though. Yeah, because a lot of the reports I was reading is 30% of the trucks that Russia had when it started the whole invasion had 20 to 50% of their tires dry rotted.
Mm-hmm.
And that dry
Sun
rot
damage.
Yeah, dry rot happens when you don't move the vehicles around. If they just sit there and do nothing, you have to move a vehicle. I mean, in the United States Army, I would have to make sure every vehicle in my motor pool that could drive would drive a minimum of 15 to 20 miles a month. We got a lawnmower outside.
Apparently.
It's awesome. Yeah, we're in a basement, and somebody's mowing grass right outside the window, so you have to bear with us.
It is what it is. It won't last long. My yard is small.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
so this whole debacle teaches a few very valuable lessons. The first one being is how dangerous it is to have a geriatric in charge of a country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we know all
Number
about
two
that.
is what corruption does to a country. Then number three is how dangerous it is to underestimate your enemy and overestimate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
number four, any reputation, no matter how robust or fearsome, gets tested once in a while.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the whole underestimation thing. Was it 99 or 2000, winter of 2000, somewhere in there? I fought for the light heavyweight title of the world, the FFKA belt in Pennsylvania, and I was fighting the champion. His name was Eddie Butcher, and I was 28 or 29, and he was 39. And I'm like, I'm gonna kick the shit out of this old dude.
I remember this fight.
Yeah, and it did not go down that way, and I lost on the TKO. But I promised myself that I would never, ever underestimate anyone or anything ever again. And I took that attitude with me into Iraq in 2004. I brought everyone home.
There you go.
And speaking of Iraq, Popp,
Yeah.
maybe you didn't respect the Hajis, but you knew what they were capable of.
Of course.
You knew that they were cunning, that they were devious, and you took them seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why you came back alive.
I respected the Hajis because at the end of the day, they're doing exactly what I would do if I had a foreign power in my country. All right. So a lot of times I kind of went easy on some of these guys, especially if they're doing like one story. They're literally trying to assault the prison. They're attacking this one wall. We're firing back. It's not going well for them, and they're running away. And they're like, "Hey, call in the Apaches to mop them up." And I'm like, I don't think so. I think we're good. Because I didn't want to see 60 more people turned into mush.
Yeah.
Just go home.
Yeah, the whole pink mist effect might be, good for a chuckle the first time.
Yeah, and listen, that's something that's really hard to live with. When you get on the radio and you make the call, and the helicopter comes out and all kinds of people get whacked. And I mean, granted, they're trying to kill you. I understand. It is what it is. But if you're not a sociopath, it'll bother you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And it would be kind of weird if it didn't.
And one of the main reasons I didn't call the helicopter to vaporize these guys is I respected what they were doing. I didn't like it. But, nobody died. Nothing was really damaged. It was basically people shooting at each other, and then everyone runs away. I mean, so it really wasn't a big deal, in my opinion.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
remember your stories about how you fortified the prison, how you kept an eye on the garrison and the towers.
Oh, yeah.
And how you established camo netting, the roadblocks, everything. So you took them seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And Russians didn't. They didn't take Ukrainians seriously. They always viewed them as stupid rural bumpkins.
Yeah.
And now they're getting killed en masse.
Uh-huh. And
they are.
That's really the perfect segue into this first piece of Russian propaganda. Now, what really cracks me up, and you told me this in your first email when you sent me these things, is that this particular piece of Russian propaganda presumed victory You know, the whole like we can have this in the bag in 5 days kind of approach. And when that didn't happen, it was deleted within 48 hours.
Correct. And basically, like I've talked about this in my later videos about Russia's strategy, is Putin has basically spent all of the time since the USSR collapsed modernizing his army. So he thought.
Apparently not modernizing it enough.
And he tried to use them almost identical how we use our army today, which is the brigade combat team method. And it absolutely fucking failed.
Yep.
12 generals, 24,000 KIAs, just an insane amount of tanks and armor personnel carriers destroyed, helicopters, jets. They even lost a fucking ship in a land war where the enemy doesn't even have a fucking navy.
They didn't just lose a ship. They lost a flagship.
Yes.
A flagship of a fleet.
A flagship of a fleet,
This hasn't happened in Russia. This actually hasn't happened in history since the Russian-Japanese War.
That's right. I was going to say that, the Russo-Japanese War, yeah.
Yeah. And apparently that was made possible due to U.S. intelligence, which letting that leak, I'm not really sure that's the best thing you could do.
Well, first of all, the way it works in the U.S. military, you have, different clearances. You have the TSSCI, secret, confidential. Then you have no foreign, which is no foreign eyes can see it. And then you have intelligence that we share with virtually all of our allies. We have intelligence we share with Israel, many countries in South America, Canada, Mexico, all kinds of countries in Europe. Mm-hmm. So it's not that much of a stretch.
Oh, no.
That we throw up an AWACS and we're like, hey, Ukraine, there's a nice juicy target at 117.4 north and
juicy.
Yeah, 36 long or latitude, longitude, and before you know it, the Ukrainians go, oh, there is.
Oh, C9, you sunk my battleship.
Yeah, it went up in smoke and went down.
Yeah,
you should have seen the storm of excuses the Russian propaganda started coming up with.
Oh, I bet.
Some of it was absolutely ridiculous. Like the guy in charge of the radar on the ship, he was looking the other way because he was feeling seasick and he didn't notice 2 missiles incoming.
Well, I'm sure.
Yes, that's exactly why they trust these guys on naval vessels is because they get seasick.
If those guys are looking at that radar are still alive, they're in jail.
Really?
Probably.
A seasick seaman? That's the best explanation they could come up with?
No.
I don't think anyone was rescued from that ship because the water is cold, and even if you're an excellent swimmer in top shape, you have 15 minutes at best. Plus, when a ship is sinking, it creates a vortex, which sucks you down.
You have to get 200 meters away from it when it goes under, or you'll go down with it. Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
It's good times.
But hey, listen, you're going to invade another country. You can expect invasion shit to happen to you.
Amen.
All right, and listen, they lost their flagship, and it's kind of humiliating, but they're in a war, and that's what happens. Now, we are not finding out exactly how it was done because they're going to rinse and repeat the method until Russia discovers how it was done on its own.
That will take a while.
Yeah, it will. Now, typically, those big ships with basically multiple overlapping defenses, you have to overwhelm the sensors and make it so they can't look at all the targets or react to all the targets. One of them will get through, and hopefully it's the bowling ball that has the strike in it that's going to do it. So.
Popp, remember what I said just a few minutes ago? Corruption. Yep. Some of the radars probably didn't work.
Yep.
Some were pawned for parts, and so on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow.
All right.
And I wonder if the same thing is going on in China. I think it probably is.
Yeah,
possible.
Yeah. Chinese military is extremely corrupt, and the generals are getting their positions due to favoritism. They don't have combat experience, almost none of them. They rig their war games so that they come out on top in order not to lose face. And the communication between the army, the navy, and the air force is very poor. So China is now watching this whole thing and taking notes.
Yep, and Russia makes a lot of weapons. Guess who's not going to be buying their weapons moving forward?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to say that. Like, this war spells the end of Soviet weaponry. Basically, everyone sees that Soviet junk, even heavily modernized Soviet junk, is still junk. When a Javelin missile that collected dust in some stockpile for 20 years pops open a brand new T-90 tank like a balloon, everyone sees the writing on the wall. No one's going to buy anything from Russia anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to revamp everything.
Yeah. On the flip side, every single country is now very interested in buying drones. The more, the better. Because in modern warfare, drones, even simple observational quadcopters made for civilian use, they're incredible force multipliers.
Yep, and we were starting to see some of that in Iraq in 2004. And I was looking at some of the TTPs, and they were effectively dropping mortar rounds on vehicles. And I knew then it was going to get really bad. So, hey, we got to move on to the next one. So hang on.
We didn't even get a chance to start.
Oh, all right. Let's start.
You guys get to talking about weapons, especially you. I can hear you salivating from here. You're like bombs, ammunition, dry rot.
I can't help it. Like, literally, I don't even know I know this stuff until somebody starts talking about it, and then it's like the gears just go bing, bing, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know this.
I know. It's good stuff, man. We have these propaganda pieces of info here from Russia.
Now, show it to them. It's all written in Russian.
It's all in Russian. So what we did was we ran this through Google Translate. Probably not perfect, but I don't speak Russian, so I don't know. But this is the one that got deleted within 48 hours. And
it talked about Ukraine as if it was already conquered. So it didn't just say, we are going to conquer it. We have already conquered it.
Oh, yeah, I love it right here. It begins with this phrase. A new world is being born before our eyes. Russia's military operation in Ukraine has ushered in a new era, and in 3 dimensions at once. And of course, in the 4th, internal Russian. Here begins a new period both in ideology and in the very model of our socio-economic system. But this is worth talking about separately a little later. Russia is restoring its unity. The tragedy of 1991, this terrible catastrophe in our history, its unnatural dislocation has been overcome. Yes, at a great cost. Yes, through the tragic events of a virtual civil war, because now brothers, separated by belonging to the Russian and Ukrainian armies, are still shooting at each other, but there will be no more Ukraine as anti-Russia.
Yeah, look, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to. I do not appreciate watching people get killed in war.
No.
All right.
And this is not us taking sides.
Yeah.
We're just telling
Ukraine,
you what's going on.
I believe, fell under the Soviet Union's control during World War II or after World War II.
No, it was part of the Russian Empire.
Oh, it was? Because I always thought it was part of Austria.
No, it was part of the Russian Empire, but it
Poland.
Was a very rebellious part.
They got Poland after
World War II.
War
I can tell you about that later.
Okay.
That was bad form on behalf of the Axis powers there.
Yep.
But hey, what are you going to do? Apparently, Trump was the first racist, president in U.S. history, not the guy that interned entire, families of Japanese just because they were Japanese.
Or LBJ.
LBJ, yeah. I'll have those African American gentlemen voting Democrat for 200 years. By the way, check out my dick.
LBJ was a piece of shit. Probably
yes, he was.
In top 5 of the worst American presidents.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
He should have just stuck to a career in Mexican pornographic wrestling. LBJ! Dun-dun!
You mean the basket?
Yes, the basket fucker. LBJ versus the basket fucker tonight in the UFC challenge. Octagon cage match.
Yep.
It's Bad News Bears. But I love this because this is pure nationalist hogwash, and it's just
correct.
This guy's just blowing smoke up Putin's ass. And I love the sentence about Putin here. Vladimir Putin has assumed without a drop of exaggeration a historic responsibility by deciding not to leave the solution of the Ukrainian question to future generations. The need to solve it would always remain the main problem for Russia for two key reasons. And the issue of national security, that is, the creation of anti-Russia from Ukraine and an outpost for the West to put pressure on us, is only the second most important among them.
Wow.
Yeah, this presumed victory, they blew smoke up their own asses, and then they got, to say they got cake on their face would be a gross underestimation.
But this is a prime example of a media machine owned by the government.
Yes. And the more we take a look at this propaganda, because we're going to be taking a look at a second piece here, the more things are going to start to sound really, really familiar if you've been paying attention to what's been going on, especially in major cities since roughly 2017. And I want to say things stepped up a notch about 2 years ago at this time. By the way, Fentanyl Floyd, 2 years sober. Congratulations.
Yeah. And then they had a good summer of love and barbecuing.
Barbecuing human hands like The Rock and Pain and Gain.
Well, I know that there's been about 10 bodies discovered in some of those buildings that were burned down in some of these riots.
That doesn't shock me. The official death toll for BLM riots was like 36. It's way more than that.
It's way higher.
Just
than
like the damage is way more than $2 billion.
Yeah, and because listen, all of those deaths were not reported, or they were like blamed on something else. But listen, it is what it is.
Yep. All right, so we have this second article here, courtesy of Lord Zed. Take a look at this. The Russian, of course. Can't read it, so Google Translate to the rescue. And this is when you're going to start to see a really two interesting threads that go through. One is a term that we hear a lot from the local bash the fash soybeans out there.
Bash the fash.
And two is a resurgence practically of the term Anglo-Saxon, which you don't hear too often over here. But in this article...
It's like in every second speech in Russian media.
Yeah, you could make a drinking game out of this.
And what exactly does that mean, referring to the West as Anglo-Saxons?
Basically, the implication is that the British royal family still has ties to all of Europe. It secretly controls all of Europe, and it secretly controls the US, of course. And they are all working together to destroy Russia for I don't know why, honestly.
Those inbred royals? Are you kidding me?
To be honest, there is an unseen hand working out there. But I don't think it's targeting any individual country. I think it's targeting all countries to form a new world order, a global fucking government, which is going to be an absolute fucking
They'd be
nightmare.
closer if they were talking about, like, the bankers, like the bank families, the Rothschilds.
No. You can't do that in Putin's Russia. You get thrown into jail for this.
For what?
Yes.
For talking about bankers and globalists and all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I've noticed that virtually every major conflict in that region seems to coincide, coincidentally, of course, with some sort of upset of the world economic system.
Mm-hmm.
And this just happens to coincide with putting his country back on the gold standard with the rubles as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of hands at work here, and that's why taking sides is just. It's bad.
Yeah, I just don't think that this unseen hand belongs to old Lizzie in the Buckingham Palace.
No. They're a little too busy trying to figure out which cousins are not going to make their kids born completely cross-eyed.
I got a lot of fans from England, and all I can say is the royal family are crazy, inbred motherfuckers. All right.
I mean, look at them.
I know. It's like, wow.
I'm just gonna say that. I'm sorry. It's my opinion. What do I know?
Yeah, man.
Hemophilia.
Woo! Hey, genetics, the first rule is to spread the genes apart.
Yeah.
It's
Yes, hemophilia.
you keep watering it down. I mean, your family tree should look like a weeping willow, not a bamboo pole.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, just look at the Habsburg dynasty.
Yeah, they really needed to take some of those royal women from the Russian royalty and just get them bent over by somebody and then change the whole genetics, man, and just not tell anybody. I got it.
It's a secret.
I know it's horrible for me to say that, but what are you gonna do?
Well, it could be worse.
They don't come here to watch me to be politically correct, which that's a fascist term.
It's Mao. It's Maoist term.
Cooked up by the communist Mao Zedong.
Yeah. If you're wasting time being politically correct, you might as well just cash it in for your hammer and sickle right now.
Yep.
This second piece, this is the one that just opened my eyes. I was like, wow. And it made me realize exactly why they're not allowing this propaganda to be disseminated over here. Because then the U.S. propaganda, state media would actually have competition. Let me see. Back in April last year, we wrote about the inevitability of the denazification of Ukraine. Nazi, Bandera Ukraine, the enemy of Russia and the West's tool for the destruction of Russia we do not need. Today, the issue of denazification has moved into the practical plane. It is necessary when a significant part of the people, most likely the majority, has been mastered and drawn into the Nazi regime and its politics. That is when the hypothesis, the people are good, the government is bad, does not work. Mm-hmm. Recognition of this fact is the basis of the policy of denazification of all its measures, and the fact itself is its subject matter.
Wow.
That sounds like a whole bunch of word salad to me.
Every time I hear Nazi, in my mind, I just hear boogeyman.
Yeah, Nazi is the go-to term in Russia for anyone whose policy does not involve marching in lockstep with Putin.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
It's just as meaningless coming from Russia as it is coming from SJWs.
Well, yes. Here in the United States, people will call you a Nazi because they want you to feel ashamed and shut up.
Yep.
So, it's starting to not work anymore. It's ridiculous. Now, I will say this. I know there are some units within Ukraine which are the equivalent of the National Guard units that we have here in America. And some of them have taken some pretty crazy pictures with Nazi flags and all kinds of fucked up shit. And I have no idea why they allowed that to take place, because that's just a bad photo op right there.
That's a story of its own. Do you want me to tell it, or do you want to continue reading the article and then I'll tell it?
Yeah. Let them finish the article and then tell the story.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll have to throw this meme up here because everyone recognizes this. Like I said, does this sound familiar to anyone? Everyone I know is Hitler way. That's why this should sound very, very familiar to you. Oh, man, back over to the article here. I remember you mentioned paragraphs 3 and 10 tend to be the most interesting, so we're gonna kind of focus on those specifically.
That's a lot of paragraphs.
The Nazis who took up arms should be destroyed to the maximum on the battlefield. There should be no significant differences between...
missed half a paragraph, actually.
Oh, I did? Okay. I thought I was pasting in there correctly. Okay. Ukraine is in just such a situation. The fact that the Ukrainian voter voted for the peace of Poroshenko and the peace of Zelensky should not be misleading. The Ukrainians were quite satisfied with the shortest path to peace through the blitzkrieg, which the last two Ukrainian presidents transparently hinted at when they were elected. It was this method of appeasement of internal anti-fascists through total terror that was used on Odessa, Kharkov, how do you pronounce that?
Dnipropetrovsk.
What he said, and other Russian cities. And this quite suited the Ukrainian man in the street. Denazification is a set of measures in relation to the Nazified mass of the population, which technically cannot be subjected to direct punishment as war criminals.
So you see the intent here?
Yes.
They say it cannot be subjected, but it should be subjected. That's the point.
Yep. And then the paragraph that I started here, he said, there should be no significant differences between the armed forces of Ukraine and the so-called national battalions, as well as the territorial defense that joined these two types of military formations. All of them are equally involved in extreme cruelty against the civilian population, equally guilty of the genocide of the Russian people, do not comply with the laws and customs of war. War criminals and active Nazis should be exemplarily and exponentially punished. There must be a total lustration. Any organizations that have associated themselves with the practice of Nazism has been liquidated and banned. However, in addition to the top, a significant part of the masses, which are passive Nazis, accomplices of Nazism, are also guilty. They supported and indulged the power. The just punishment of this part of the population is possible only as bearing the inevitable hardships of a just war against the Nazi system, waged as carefully and prudently as possible in relation to civilians. Further denazification of this mass of the population consists in re-education, which is achieved by ideological repression, suppression of Nazi attitudes, and strict censorship. Not only in the public sphere, but also necessarily in the sphere of culture and education.
There we go.
It was through culture and education that a deep mass Nazification of the population was prepared and carried out, secured by the promise of dividends from the victory of the Nazi regime over Russia, propaganda, internal violence and terror, as well as the 8-year war with the people of Donbass who rebelled against Ukrainian Nazism. And then this last paragraph here is paragraph 10. In fact, their political aspirations cannot be neutral. Expiation of guilt before Russia for treating it as an enemy can be realized only by relying on Russia in the processes of restoration, revival, and development. No Marshall Plans should be allowed for these territories. There can be no neutrality in the ideological and practical sense compatible with denazification. The cadres and organizations that are the instrument of denazification in the newly denazified republics cannot but rely on Russia's direct military and organizational support.
Oof. So basically, that's a long-worded way to say it's my way or the highway.
Yeah, and if you are Ukrainian, if you love your country, if you have warm feelings towards your country, they will just point at you, call you a Nazi, and drag you off to the whip me, spank me camp. And, yeah. That's what happened in the Donbass region. So the separatists, once they took over, they basically scoured the population for anyone with Ukrainian sympathies. And then these people were never seen again.
Damn.
Yep. And that's actually fairly common throughout the countries of Europe, you know, up until this point.
Yep. Any heavily leftoid government, state, local, what have you, or in the case of places like New Zealand, Australia, you're talking federal at that point. We're starting to see a lot of this same sort of rhetoric. We're seeing it corporately, we're seeing it administratively, and they have found a reason now, thanks to the pinko pox, and you know they found a reason to start putting people back in whip me, spank me camps, which is exactly where they want you.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And for you guys in America who are currently dealing with panty-fascists, remember, these people are not there to have debates with you, and you won't defeat them by poking holes in their ideology. They don't care about that.
Exactly.
They don't give a shit about which party you voted for, what your job is, or whether or not you sympathize with them or not. They're here to kill you, enslave your family, and destroy everything and anything that you like or you value.
Absolutely correct.
So, yeah, you are dealing with a hostile totalitarian movement. It's not disillusioned voters, not dissident intellectuals or anarchists or whatever, just brainwashed, aggressive, murderous zealots.
Well, I couldn't have said it better.
I think that deserves one of these.
Yeah, that's definitely a thug life.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, the libs and the left, they want to do away with the Constitution and remake it.
Yep.
Yeah, fuck that.
And you see this rhetoric, and you see, like, this is where we start to cross over and we start to come back over here and see the local propaganda. Because if you go to a website like Vox, who is a terrorist really? the problem with labeling your least favorite protest group as terrorists. And this is by someone named Daniel Byman, who completely shucks all credibility completely to the wolves with just the first 3 paragraphs, because he says, when I write about the threat of white supreme pizza terrorism, I often receive complaints from readers that I'm focusing on the wrong problem and that my articles are ill-informed and misleading. Well, because we know how they juggle the stats.
They juggle the stats.
But then you come down here, well, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, there's no credible case for calling it a terrorist organization.
What? What? $2 billion minimum.
Yeah, and not to mention the numerous investigations for money fraud and juggling the books and everything else that's been going on, because BLM really stands for buying large mansions, in case you forgot.
I like that. But yeah, they got all that money. They never helped one black person go to college.
Nope.
Didn't help rebuild one black person's business. They didn't even buy fucking sandwiches and hand them out. They did fuck all with that money.
And not one fiery but peaceful protest for people like Secoria Turner, the 8-year-old girl shot by a BLM member just because they happened to pull a U-turn near a protest site after they had burned down a Wendy's. Her life apparently did not matter.
That's absolutely correct.
And they think the same about you. They want They want you in a camp. They want you in chains. And they want you doubting every single thing you see. They want you to hear only their voice, basically.
Yep.
Gee, there's a word for people who want you to hear only their point of view and do everything they can to crush out dissenting opinion. And they use the same tool. I think it's called censorship.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, before we go, what's our roll call?
We got a quick roll call here for you, and then we'll get into some more American propaganda and how that was made possible. We got 75 currently watching over on Twitch, 65 on DLive, 71 on Odyssey, 568 watching over on Rumble, 840, just jumped to 852 on YouTube, and 36 on MGTOW.tv. I hope everybody's enjoying the stream tonight. Always love having Lord Zed around. Oh, yeah. And,
Popp, about the Azov battalion.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It's basically a SWAT force because it's under command of the Ministry of the Interior. So it was formed in 2014 after the annexation of Crimea. So it was a reactionary force. So its founders were the most radically inclined people, from genuine neo-Nazis to football hooligans to just very, very ultra-patriotic dudes. But
could you say football hooligans one more time?
Yeah, football hooligans.
I love it.
I like that.
Yeah. So, but these guys, they are undesirable as soldiers because they lack discipline, usually. They tend to go off the hook. So as time went by and the war in Donbass went on, these guys got slowly filtered or killed. And the Azov battalion was restocked with just tough, patriotic dudes who just want to fight for their country. And they have 8 continuous years of combat experience. So do people really expect the Ukrainians to disband their hardest hitting, most combat capable unit because people don't like their aesthetics?
Probably not.
Come on.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. You want real crazy dudes, you should take a look at Tornado Battalion that was formed also in 2014 out of convicts.
Really?
And these guys, and these guys were so brutal and they were so hard to control, the Ukrainian government basically said, fuck them, and put them back to prison.
All right, good.
Wow. I didn't know that. Well, I mean, there's when you look at...
Hitler did the same shit.
Yeah, when you look at the shit that we're not allowed to learn, essentially, over here, because ever since the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, and we have references for all of these things on the website.
Yeah, I sent you some of those links today.
Yes, yeah. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act was passed along with a defense bill. I want to say it was 2012, 2013, something like that.
And what happened is they threw that little fucking thing into the big package because it wouldn't stand on its own.
Yep. Because this allowed... Well, there was the anti-propaganda laws, essentially what the Smith-Mundt Act was. And it was passed, I want to say, during the First World War or the Second.
I don't remember when it was passed, but it was pretty much done away with in 2012.
Yeah. They said, okay, propaganda's fine, but only for
other countries.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, only for other countries. You can't disseminate it here. Obama threw it into a defense bill and then got it to pass as part of the 2013 National Defense Authorization Act, and it went into effect when this article was published, so July 2013.
Yep.
And that's why you don't learn about, the mainstream media and or you don't learn from the mainstream media why the U.S. has really a role in a lot of what's going on over there. Like, you can read this through. It's very long. It's very word salady.
Listen, the United States has been involved in other countries' business pretty much since, the War of 1812.
Yeah. And every time we do get involved, whether it's arming the Mujahideen or, giving weapons now to the Ukrainians, like, it never ever goes well.
No.
And yet they keep doing it.
It goes off the rail. Sometimes it takes up to 20 years or more, but it goes off the rail. Now, I know for a fact, and I've been told this by individuals, that a lot of those weapons that we're delivering over there are falling into the hands of the black market and getting sold to the highest bidder. So we can see those weapons again anywhere in the world in the next 20 years before they fall off the shelf life.
Yep.
Okay, because
perhaps, but I don't think that Ukrainians are ever going to turn against the U.S. the way the Mujahideen did.
No, I'm just saying that they can sell those weapons to a third party, and then what happens after that, we have no idea.
Yeah. Because, at the end of the day, the real victims in this situation are just the average citizens.
Oh, yeah.
But there are always going to be people in positions of power or just, just corrupt assholes, people on the black market, what have you. They're going to find a way to turn tragedy into a money-making scheme or use it to amass more power, which they can then use to amass more wealth.
And get more power.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, the Ukrainian security forces, the guys who are kind of overseeing the counterintelligence unit, they have been given the permission to shoot anyone embezzling humanitarian aid or weapons on site.
Oh.
So they catch you hoarding some of that stuff to sell it, and, well, you get a bullet.
Yeah. Well,
good
tough times that require tough measures, man.
There is martial law over there. What did you expect?
Well, typically, if in an open conflict area, they're going to have martial law. That's very common.
Yep.
Yeah, but Popp, here's the thing. If, let's say, the U.S. gets invaded by, for example, I don't know, Canada.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm just using it as an example.
I know.
I know.
It's funny.
Do you see Biden administration telling the army to open up its stockpiles and start handing out guns to people willy-nilly?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No, leftists are too afraid of guns because they know that guns stand between them and what they want.
Yes. And how many states now have open carry? Like 26?
Something like that. It's growing every day.
Yeah. 36 to 38. Magic number.
That's what cracks me up is that the same people who will insist that children can determine their biological destiny at the age of 4 think that you shouldn't own a gun until at least the age of 21. And even then, you should have to jump through hoops of fire and juggle cats and chainsaws in order to procure one. And then even once you get it, well, you don't need a 15-round magazine. You don't need this. You don't need that. You don't need a bump stock. Blah, 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 blah.
Shall not be infringed.
Yeah. And yet, when it's not here, they're totally fine with a strong nationalist identity and an armed populace. But here it's bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So guns are the only obstacle to them going full Soviet Union on you.
For going full retard, yeah.
Yeah. The millions upon millions of people in mass graves who were murdered by their own governments after being disarmed, they tell that tale pretty well.
Yes, they do.
It's quite horrendous. You could add up all of the gun deaths, accidental or otherwise, in the civilian population for the past 100+ years. it would pale in comparison to that number of people massacred by their own government.
Yeah, and you know what? The amount of people getting killed by guns in our country is far less than the people who die from malpractice.
Yeah, or get killed with hammers.
Yes.
More people get killed with hammers and knives.
Yeah, what are you
Or
gonna do?
get hit by cars.
Yeah,
Hit by
there's that
cars.
too. Yeah.
Or just do stupid shit. Like,
Hey, look, you want to have an argument in physics? Step out in front of a car. Let me know how it worked out. Yeah.
Were you fucking with it?
I got hit by a car, man. Were you fucking with it?
They always ask you that. You walk in there, like we had one guy bit by a dog, and we took him in I was the sergeant. Took him to the aid station to get his tetanus shot, a rabies shot, and his stitches. And the first thing the warrant officer did, he sits down, he crosses his leg, and he's got the clipboard, and he goes, "So, you got bit by a dog? Huh? Were you fucking with it?" I mean, they always say that. They always say that. They even said it to me when I got fucked up by wildlife.
It is what it is.
The scorpion.
Yep,
Yes,
it was a good one.
the scorpion.
So about propaganda, the trick is the more you are exposed to it, the more receptive you become. So it kind of has a
It wears
snowball
on
effect.
you. It wears you down,
Yeah.
huh?
Yep.
Yeah, it chips at your will. It chips at your logic.
Yes.
And with Russians, I had to break contact with many of my Russian friends and buddies because I don't recognize them anymore. I talk to them, and instead of a human being, I hear the TV on the other end. It's like someone has erased all logic, all memories, everything that made them who they are. It's like a mass psychosis. These people have been driven into a frenzy. And a shitload of Russians have very close Ukrainian relatives like sisters or uncles or cousins who call them and ask for some kind of help. They scream that they're getting shelled and bombed. And they get robotic, cold responses like, "You are not being shelled. You are lying to us. We are liberating you."
That also sounds very American.
Yeah.
I remember specific lines being used like that roughly around the 2004 time period.
I've disassociated myself with all of the liberal friends I used to have.
Yeah.
I literally don't talk to them anymore. I have nothing to do with them. They are all brainwashed lackeys. Like there's one I still talk to once in a while, but that's probably going to come to an end as well.
Yep.
And this can take very dangerous forms. Like there was this pilot. So he was born in the Ukrainian city of Poltava, and he went to a flight school in Crimea. And after Crimea was annexed, he joined the Russian Air Force. And in the first days of the war, he was shot down over Poltava. He was bombing the city in which he grew up and where his mother lived at the time.
That's hardcore, man. That's hardcore.
Damn.
I mean, Popp, I know you probably don't have really warm feelings about your hometown, but if you were a bomber pilot, would you take an order to bomb?
No.
To bomb it?
Nope. I would not do that. I would have technical issues with my plane. Or I'd develop a migraine headache.
Yeah. Yeah. The GPS that you duct taped to my wing is fucking up. I'm gonna have to go get.
Yeah. Reinstall the duct tape on my plane. It's falling apart.
Yeah, I would bomb it, but you see, there's a problem. The landing gear's got dry rot.
Yep.
So it's all your fault.
Yeah, that's hardcore, man. That's hardcore. I don't think I could do that.
No.
Yeah, and when they captured other pilots who were shot down, they asked them, like, did you know that you were dropping bombs on civilians, on homes, on residential structures? And they were like, yeah. And they asked them, why? And the guys just give them a blank look, like...
It's my job.
Yeah, like the lights are on, but nobody's home.
Yeah, I know. But, in an act of war like that, listen, the population is going to get hit. I mean, that's just the way it goes. It sucks, but it's reality.
Yeah. And that the way that propaganda just seeps in. I mean, that's why, in this country, even intelligent people that they will fall in line with really dumb shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of women out there who will swear on a stack of Bibles that they are not feminists, but you get them talking about certain feminist beliefs. They're right in there with it.
Boom.
Oh, yeah, abortion's health care.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, totally. I wish that,
the way
we
it
as
was
men...
with the koof.
Yeah.
The coof,
You
yeah.
had-
Yeah, the masks
yeah,
will help you with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you had guys with 2 PhDs spewing bullshit. They were supposed to be smart, huh?
No, they were supposed to get their paycheck from Pfizer. By the way, this stream sponsored by Pfizer. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, and did you hear they're restricting Johnson & Johnson because it has a possibility of heart damage?
Yeah, possibility.
That actually leads me to our real sponsor for tonight's stream. I'm just going to do a quick jog over here. Thomas Fitzgerald and his book, The Police Are Not Your Friends, kind of goes along with tonight's subject a little bit. If you think that Karens weaponizing the police against their neighbors ended just because you can go into Walmart without a face diaper, think again. It's not over until it can't happen again. So let Thomas Fitzgerald spell it out for you in this book, The Police Are Not Your Friends, A Guide to Police Interaction, Detainment, Arrest, and Trial. Because understanding your rights is how you get your white belt in administrative violence. It's available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle right now, and there's a link in the Meat Gazer box. Caught you looking, you perverts. That book is going to hit #1, man.
I hope so.
Keep it going.
And guess what? The police are not your friend.
No. And they
Never,
are
ever
under no
talk to the
obligation to
police.
protect you.
No, they don't have an obligation to protect you. They can warp and use your words against you.
Yep.
They can lie to you, deceive you, and do pretty much whatever they want other than break your arms and legs, which may or may not happen in certain states.
And then they can overcharge you just to make sure that something sticks when it goes to trial in a very public way that destroys your reputation and livelihood.
Correct. It's very common.
By the way, Blake,
Yes.
there is a really good book written by an anonymous author that is freely available on the internet. It's simply called Rats. And for you guys who are in prepper groups or organizing or whatever, it's a very good guide on how to spot infiltrators and how to survive interrogation by the police.
Rats, huh?
He's writing it down.
Yeah.
Rats.
Where's it at?
Rats.
You can just find it in Google. I sent you the author's pseudonym, the name under which it was written.
Thank you very much.
Claire Wolf.
Claire Wolf.
So to all of you guys who are into organizing, take a look.
Yeah.
I'm not sponsoring or advertising anything, just came to my head randomly.
Well, we understand. It's all good.
Well, that's kind of how we are. We're just, we're going one way, and then it reminds us of something else. Boo! Off into the weeds.
Off into the weeds. Happens all the time.
And that's really one of probably the main way that propaganda, I would say, is used in the U.S. It's used to distract you from shit that's really important. And we have another article here from the Free Thought Project. We'll just kind of skim through this really quick, but it gets you thinking. 5 stories ignored by the mainstream media while they focus solely on Ukraine, and now they're focusing solely on abortion. Number 1, the FOIA request reveals the Biden admin paid $1 billion to corporate media outlets to push the poke and smoke.
$1 billion.
Shocker.
What, just one?
I think $1 billion for each media outlet, if I had to guess. Let's see, as the Blaze points out, through virtually all these newsrooms produced stories covering the pokes, the taxpayer dollars flowing to their companies were not disclosed to audiences in news reports, since common practice dictates that editorial teams operate independently of media advertising departments, and news teams felt no need to make the disclosure as some publications reached for comment explained. Now remember, Russian media is Russian state media. We allegedly have an
free
independent
press.
media.
Yeah. That's owned by 6, maybe 4 corporations. We don't know because the lines are all blend. But what the hell do I know? I'm just an old grunt.
All of whom overwhelmingly donate to a particular political affiliation that happens to be in charge of the House, Senate, and executive branch as we speak.
Yep.
I'm sure they had nothing to do with the mule situation.
Nothing.
No, all 2,000 of them.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that yet. Oh, you bastard. I need to see that.
Yes, I think that's been a popular request that I'm getting. Like, you guys need to watch that and review it.
We can easily do that.
Yeah, let us know where to find it. I think it's on Rumble and Locals, if
It's
I remember
actually
correctly.
2000mules.com.
Okay, I'll check it out. Number 2, Pfizer data was quietly released listing well over 1,200 adverse side effects from the jab. We know that one. Mm-hmm. And now we know that it's only, it was only 12% efficacy, and it dropped to 1% after a week, and they knew it.
And they still kept pushing that garbage.
$39 billion in profits in 2021 alone.
And listen, we don't even know what the long-term effects of that quim, that
we'll be
poison.
finding out.
Yes.
At this point, after all the leaks, I'm amazed it doesn't make you grow a second head. Like, what are the side effects it doesn't have? I mean, it's easier to list them.
Yeah. State agents raid preschools, question toddlers without parental consent for not wearing face diapers. Lovely. As government sends billions to Ukraine, millions of U.S. children are being pushed into horrible poverty. Gee, I wonder why.
Well, a lot of children get pushed into poverty because their single mothers are hooers, don't have jobs, or don't make enough money to support their kids, and they take it from the male in this whole equation.
Or, it could be leftoid lockdownerism.
Could be that too.
Could be that too. And then here we go. Biden pushing executive orders to make U.S. gun owners felons. Shocker.
Yep. That's not.
What were we saying before about guns being the only thing standing in between us and Soviet America? Take notes.
Well, first of all, like that last one, you're going to have to pass laws to turn a lot of these people into felons. You can't just say, now you're a felon. You can fight that in court.
But this is the most lawless administration in the history of the United States. They don't give a fuck about the Constitution. The only time they glance at it is to make sure their butt's been wiped.
Okay, I'll go with that.
God, the 10th Amendment came away clean again. Have the kitchen whip me up something Mexican.
Damn, that's brutal.
Joe Biden's America.
The U.S. government and the so-called elites, they will keep using Ukraine as a very convenient curtain to hide their blunders and cover up their criminal acts.
Correct.
Yep.
This war is basically a godsend to them because it created an excellent excuse to sweep everything under a rug and embezzle millions from assistance to Ukraine.
Exactly.
Yep, I would definitely have to go along with that.
It's not like we don't know for a fact that there are numerous, leftoid politicians in considerable, positions of influence who have been using Ukraine to launder their clothes.
Yes. That's a very big laundromat biolab.
Yes. It's Ukraine.
It's a one-stop shop.
Yeah, largest exporter of Tide pens, right?
Yep. One-stop shop. You can get whatever you want there.
Make sure all those Benjamins don't have "Let's Go Brandon" stamped on them. You got to Tide pen that shit out. I did that. Yeah, you did.
What a bastard.
Oh, man. And this last one here, oldie but a goodie. One thing that no one reported on, because I didn't know about this. This was 3 years ago. One more bit of propaganda to distract us from the fact that a bipartisan Russia report was completely ignored by the legacy media. And basically, it would have justified ending the Mueller report way before it did.
Yeah. And they kept that shit going basically to weaken Trump's position.
Yep.
They didn't want him to make any big moves. So they kept him busy with infighting and horse shit.
You see how it all comes back to Russia, though?
Yep.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, but you guys may laugh about the Russia collusion thing, and it's probably a bullshit, but if there is one thing that Russians never skimped on, it's espionage, bribery, and propaganda.
Absolutely correct.
And according to my sources, Putin has $500 billion of political capital in Europe alone.
Yeah.
So this includes bought and paid for politicians, lobbyists, corporate mooks, media outlets, spies, and what have you. So Ukrainians had a huge shock when the war started because the masks came off and they saw how many of their members of parliament, city mayors, prominent businessmen, and other public figures turned out to be Russian agents. And the same shock is coming soon for Europe and the US. And the US also has Chinese agents to worry about.
2 million
That's a completely different headache.
Yep.
2 million.
Yeah. Russia's been, basically, they've been part of Hollywood since, I want to say, the 40s. Mm-hmm. They pumped millions of dollars of communist propaganda into Hollywood works. Most famously, I think the movie High Noon was supposed to be a pro-communist manifesto about standing up to the quote-unquote capitalist establishment, and apparently it was so poorly written in that particular style, people wound up interpreting it 180 degrees the other way because communists just suck at everything.
Pretty much.
Apparently they only suck at making movies more than they suck at economics.
Well, the thing is, and people don't want to admit this, but humans are very individualistic. That means they do things for their own best interest. They don't go, I'm going to go out and do all of this hard work and stuff, but not for me, for other people. That happens in fairy dust and elf fartland.
Star Trek.
It doesn't happen here. Yes.
Back when it was good.
It happens in Star Trek where they can convert energy into a nice, steamy, bubbly pizza. But that doesn't happen in the real world.
No. Tea, Earl Grey, hot.
People want compensation for their work.
That's right.
Yeah. And people most definitely will vote in their own self-interest. The 19th Amendment is one of the worst things that ever happened to this country.
I'm going to have to agree with you.
Because you gave people permission to emotionalize their politics and then use it as a weapon, not only to create division, but to virtually destroy the family unit at its core. And train the government against its own people.
And you punish men for participating in the traditional family.
Yeah,
it's so fucked up.
It's beyond fucked up.
Remember, Popp, it's not supposed to make sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
It's supposed to be as twisted and illogical as possible, but it supports itself by bashing you over the head. So you studied PSYOPs. You know there is black, gray, and white propaganda.
Yep.
But the communist regimes, they have invented red propaganda. At least that's what I call it. So its purpose is not to misinform or disinform, but to humiliate. When every single
Cancel
speaker,
culture.
TV screen, basically every single source is telling you the water is dry, the sky is green, and so on. And this bashes you all the time.
Men are women, women are men.
Yep.
Yeah. You start doubting your own perceptions.
Yep.
And then you are basically putty in their hands.
Fortunately for me, I have actually worked in some propaganda shit. I know how it works. I can see it when it's coming my way. And I did all that time in the military, and I don't want to say I was brainwashed. I don't think they could brainwash me. That's why I went into special operations. Because as a Green Beret, they give you a lot of money. They tell you what you want. They give you your left and right limit. And then they're like, now it's your job. And then they fucking stay out of your way.
Yeah.
You literally have all this money. You know what you have to do. And they're like, just make it happen.
And that's the polar opposite of what happens in Russia.
That's absolutely correct.
Yep.
Russian military command is extremely rigid and top-heavy. So even the smallest troop movement has to get a green light from the general staff and often from the Kremlin itself.
Yep.
And these movements are strictly by the book. It's
and I'm sure that's
hilarious
not, and I'm sure that's totally efficient and not wasteful at all.
Are you familiar with the Chernobyevka phenomenon that happened during this war? So there is this place, a small village called Chernobyevka, and it's a bottleneck, and it's also the only access way to the entire Kherson region. But it is very easily observed and easily covered by enemy artillery. Mm-hmm. So the textbook says that it's a perfect point to take. So the soldiers are told to go and dig in there, establish observation points, ammunition stores, what have you. it doesn't matter that there are dozens of wrecked armor around that place, along with bodies of poor bastards who followed the same order previously. So the command said, dig in, you go and dig in, and then an artillery strike comes in and turns you into mincemeat. And this has happened 18 times.
Wow! Wow! That reminds me of some of those
mistake 18 times.
Well, in Vietnam, we literally broke whole units taking stupid ass hills that just had a number for a name. And some of these hills they assaulted 5, 6, 7 fucking times. Then they win the hill, and 3 days later they just leave. And then the enemy just reoccupies the hill. That's that is some serious stupid shit right there.
This is not even about occupation. This place is a killing field, but the Russians still, they stubbornly roll in. They establish their tents, the communication systems. The general comes in to inspect, and boom, the artillery comes in right away. Hey. 18 times.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That's crazy. You talk about not learning. That's one hell of a learning curve. It's like a straight line.
Yeah, Russian NCOs have absolutely zero autonomy in their decisions, and the brass has a very approximate picture of what's going on in the field. So their orders are usually suicidal. So NCOs end up sabotaging their missions to survive. And the most common tactic is dumping fuel and then claiming to be unable to advance until resupply.
And I'm going to be honest with you. If I had a bunch of idiots like that pulling the shots and I was losing guys, I'd do the same thing. You fight smart, not stupid.
Amen. All right. I noticed, guys, we're about 350 likes short of our 912 on YouTube. You know what that means? It means that I must break you.
Oh, God.
I hate this bitch.
You made me do it. You made me do it. It's not just because Channel 1-800 done paid for it.
You've been so bad.
God, she looks like Miss Piggy. She looks like Miss Piggy, that one that used to that ran for president a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, fucking cunt.
Oh.
This video gives a new meaning to the phrase putting lipstick on a pig.
It absolutely does.
Oh, Kermit. All right. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us so far. We are going to jump to new tech right now to read your super chats because I don't want to have to censor myself any more than I already have.
How many super chats do we have?
Oh, we got a pretty good amount here. We're going to continue with the discussion on new tech as well because Lord Zed did send us some videos that we absolutely cannot show on YouTube.
This is legitimate carnage.
Yes.
Legitimate dead bodies.
We'll get fucked if we
show that. And if we show that on YouTube, they're going to slam fuck us with a pool stick.
Yes. So with that being said, go, drain the main vein, grab a beer, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes. What do you say?
Yep. Do it.
All right. Oh, but first things first.
Stop! Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square. Stop!
See you in 5.
All right.